Welcome, everybody, to On This Day on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster, and today, on this day, December the 20th, 1980, the NFL hosts their only, to this date, announcerless football game between the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins played at the Orange Bowl in Miami. Now, this was a meaningless season-ending game for two mediocre NFL teams, but Don Ohlmeyer turned it into a happening and a piece of TV and NFL history. Now, Ohlmeyer was the first producer of Monday Night Football, and he produced and directed 3 Olympic broadcasts. He won 16 Emmys and is a member of the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame. And yet, one of the stunts that will follow him to his grave was a game without a play-by-play crew. Now, Ohlmeyer talked about this recently on ESPN, where he said, all the stuff I've done in my career, and that's what I'm going to be remembered for. It serves me right. Now, Ohlmeyer, has worked for ESPN, says he worked for NBC, and he announced a decision in October of that year, and it served several purposes for the executive producer of NBC Sports. He had always believed that announcers talked too much. Here was an attention-seeking vehicle that would drive that point home. And company man that he was, Ohlmeyer had an eye on the ratings. NBC, with its smaller AFC markets, was giving CBS all it could handle, and this might be a way to squeeze a few more points out of an unattractive matchup. Now, as Ohlmeyer remembered, here we had this dog of a game. Part of my thinking was that we could possibly do to get fans to watch it. Now, people could follow a game with picture graphics and hearing the PA announcer in the background. Now, Dick Enberg, who recently passed away, was an ESPN announcer, but he was NBC's lead football announcer at the time, and he talked about this. And he said, my first reaction was incredible nervousness. And we're paid to talk, so all of us want to fill the air with lots of exciting words. And he said, we all gathered together hoping that Ohlmeyer was dead wrong. I mean, he was flirting with the rest of our lives. What if this crazy idea really worked? Now, Bryant Gumbel was the host of NBC's pregame show. He appeared on camera in a form-fitting white V-neck sweater. Before the game, then he put his microphone down and walked into the Orange Bowl in Miami. Now, the young guy in the white sweater looks fat, Gumbel said, watching a DVD of the game in a Midtown Manhattan hotel suite a few years back. He said, this is the first time I've seen that. I thought it was more amusing than anything else. I viewed it as kind of a stunt with a small s. Now, Gumbel artfully teed up the game without the aid of a teleprompter, returned for several updates as the game progressed. To compensate for the lack of words, Ohlmeyer and his technical people placed sensitive microphones all around the stadium. Problem was, the NFL would not relax its usual restrictions, and NBC was unable to place microphones on players. As a result, even the quarterback signals were inaudible. Now, the Orange Bowl public address announcer, Bob Kaufman, was instructed to embellish his usual observations of who carried the ball down in distance. And you would hear during the game, they're measuring for the first down, recalled Michael Weissman, the telecast co-producer. And that last drive took 7 minutes and 20 seconds. The graphics also filled out some of the holes. And all those graphics, gruesome yellow graphics. I mean, I've actually got a VHS tape of this game, and it's hard to watch. But at the time, Ohlmeyer said the graphics were state-of-the-art. And it's kind of like when you look back at playing Atari if you were a kid in like 1980, as opposed to going in and watching your son play Madden right now. Now, nonetheless, no NFL broadcast had ever featured so many graphics, even though they weren't that good. Weissman's only lament is that NBC didn't employ a score bug and a running clock. They had the technology, they just didn't think of it. Fox was the first to make the debut with that on its first league telecast in 1994. Now, in retrospect, Ohlmeyer said he wishes he'd gone to Gumbel more often. Several times, pre-recorded interviews with Dolphins coach Don Shula and receiver Duriel Harris appeared on the screen. Now, normally we're following the announcers and directing the flow of the telecast, Weissman said. Early on in the game, we realized that we could do whatever we wanted. We'd sit around in the truck and say, let's play the tape now. But it would just come out of the blue and didn't make a lot of sense out of context. There were other moments in the rewatching that would have benefited from an announcer's ability to provide the context. Gumbel pointed to the end of the first half. When the 3-12 Jets found themselves on the Dolphins 3 with 3 seconds left on the clock, instead of attempting a field goal that would tie the game at 10, they elected to go for the touchdown in the lead. And Gumbel said it lacks a degree of drama unless someone there is to say, all right, here's why we're going to shut up and just watch this. Here's what's at stake. Whatever they do, the match play and championship golf on paper, it looks like it's a wonderful idea. When in truth you find it's just kind of a lot of dead space in between shots. Now, Enberg said the final outcome with much relief was the fact after watching for a quarter or two that, something was missing. And that something was us. While we are not the most important ingredients in the pie, we certainly are a slice of that pie that gives the whole experience full flavor. Now, the on-field score, the Jets won 24-17, wasn't as interesting as the reaction logged by the NBC switchboard, which was 831 for the experiment and 518 against the experiment. Now, Gumbel said, okay, crunching those numbers, what was the U.S. population in those days? 200 million? It's not like it was a great game. It's not like the immaculate reception happened during this. I can't believe it's anything more than a footnote. Olmar said it certainly didn't get a much better rating for us than that dog of a game deserved. This was not some backroom experiment, said Neal. This was network television at a time when network television was far from dominant. Not like it is today. And I think that NBC Sports that day really shone kind of in a petri dish for all to see. Did NBC announcers behave differently afterwards is always an interesting question. And Dick Enberg allowed that it improved him. He said consciously, even to this day, which was 4 or 5 years ago when this interview was done, there are moments in every sport that I do when I kind of throw my hands up as if to say to my partner, let's not talk. This moment is special. We don't need to talk. And we just let it play. So there you go. On December the 20th, 1980, the first NFL announcerless game. And if you go find a game, I don't know if it's on YouTube or not, but I've got a DVD of the game. And when you watch the game, you'll almost fall asleep within 10 minutes. It really is boring without announcers. And if you're one of these people that don't like Chris Collinsworth or Joe Buck, you'll come to appreciate him if you watch this game with no announcers. But that's the story for On This Day, December the 20th, 1980. Remember, you can find us on this day on the Grueling Truth Sports Network every day. Right around 10 or 11 o'clock, the show will be posted. And you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. This is Mike Goodpaster, and you've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.